The syllabus for the CESD Research Methods course is available on the first page of the front page of the Moodle. You can access it there anytime. As you know, Lauren and I are your course instructors, and you can reach us by email pretty much at any time. We'll try to get back to you within a day. And if you need to talk to us immediately, we do have office hours where you can actually phone us. So our phone numbers are listed here as well. Lauren's office hours are Wednesdays from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. and mine are Thursdays from 9:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. This course provides an overview of research within the context of community development and social justice. You'll learn about qualitative and quantitative techniques and what qualitative and quantitative mean, and how you can use those in community-based and participatory action research, in program evaluation, survey applications, and building public participation for research projects. As you know, the course will be delivered online. You're expected to engage in the learning by reading all of the course materials that will be available on the Moodle, by completing these online lectures, actively participating in the forum discussions, and questioning assumptions through your own personal reflections in some of the assignments that will be that you'll be completing. For the evaluation of the course, 15% of your mark is participation, which is typically evaluated through your participation in the discussion forums. Your presentation, which is due May 25th, is worth 20% of your mark. The completion of an ethics certificate and reflection on ethical concerns within research is due June 1st and is 10% of your mark. You'll also have to do a literature review. That's due June 29th and is worth 20% of your mark. And the final in-course assignment is the reflective journal, which is due July 6th and is worth 10%. And then the final project, which is going to be a full research proposal, is due July 20th and is worth 25% of your mark. No additional resources are required for this class, and in fact, as hopefully you're aware, all the readings are actually available free of charge on the Moodle in PDF format. So you're not required to purchase any additional texts for this class. What you can expect to have learned after the completion of this course is being able to differentiate between positivist, interpretivist, and transformative theoretical approaches to research. And I know that might not make a lot of sense right now, but it will. Students will be able to identify and organize the key elements of a research proposal. You'll demonstrate through your assignments an intermediate level of understanding of community engagement in research. You'll be able to articulate key ethical issues in conducting community-based research and ethical issues of particular concern in conducting research within Indigenous communities. And finally, through your assignments, you'll be able to demonstrate the capacity to conduct a literature review and to plan a research project. Now we're going to go over each of the topics by lesson. The first, as you know, is really the introduction, which we're in the middle of, and we've covered in the beginning what other topics are going to be discussed today. And it's really going to focus on distinguishing research from other forms of learning, describing what makes community-based research different from other forms of research, and also examining your own place as a researcher in the community and in the research process. In the second lesson, we look at research design and in particular also the role of questions and questioning within research. There's a reading from Research for Social Justice by Van de Sanden Schwartz. It's one chapter called Developing Research Questions. That's available on the Moodle as well. And this really focuses on elements of the research process, forming research questions, identifying community needs, and engaging communities in research processes. For each of these lessons, you can see that the learning outcomes are outlined here. I won't go over each one, but you can see what the expectations are that you'll be able to come out of each of these lessons with. Lesson 3 will focus on ethical issues in community-based research. Again, there's a reading that is available on the Moodle. It'll focus on ethical issues in community-based research. And anytime you see this acronym, CBR, we're talking about community-based research. We'll also look at ethical issues in research within and with Indigenous communities, and we'll talk about the Tri-Council Policy Statement. So this is a important document that covers aspects of ethical research practice in Canada. Lesson 4 will look at theoretical frameworks and Indigenous and Western worldviews as they apply to research. There's a small excerpt from one reading that you'll have to do, as well as half of another chapter that's also available on the Moodle. And the focus for this is, for one, to really make you a bit more comfortable with the concept of theory, that it's not something scary, it's not something that is overly difficult to understand. It's really just about kind of getting hold of the words that are used to describe the to describe theories, to describe how they're relevant to research itself. So we'll look at research paradigms, our understanding of reality, knowledge, and values, and the importance of theoretical frameworks for our research. Lesson 5 focuses more on indigenizing approaches to community-based research. And for that, you'll finish that chapter that you started in the previous lesson. This is by Bagele Chalisa, and it's a chapter called Situating Knowledge Systems. So we'll go into a bit more detail in this section on the history of colonialism, the concept of the captive mind, Indigenous research innovations, and also how to adapt strategies for decolonization to our research processes. Lesson 6 will focus on participatory action research, building on a lot of the same kind of concepts that we've discussed in the previous lessons. Again, there's a reading from Research for Social Justice by Van de Sande and Schwartz. You can read chapter 6 for that lesson. And this will focus on developing an understanding of what participatory action research is, the role of empowerment within research processes, the varying role of the researcher within any kind of research, different types of awareness, and we'll also talk about the importance of strengths-based approaches. Lesson 7 will look more at quantitative techniques. So by now we'll have discussed the distinction between quantitative and qualitative, and we'll be looking specifically at a case study of research that was conducted in Sault Ste. Marie about the role of the not-for-profit sector. That's for the reading. And we'll use that as an example to show some of the many different ways that quantitative data can be used to advance our goals for social justice through research. We'll also look at issues of statistical sampling. Now that can be kind of scary for folks who haven't done statistics before, but I want to assure you that it's not a huge focus of this course for one, but also everything that you need to know you will be provided with. It's not something that's going to be overly taxing to get up to speed with. And we'll also talk about aspects of survey design. Lesson 8 will focus on qualitative techniques. In particular, we're going to talk about conducting interviews and focus groups, and also how do we find meaning in that data. And you'll hear me use that word data a lot. And what I mean when I say data is basically the results of our research, or what we'll call our data collection. When we do those interviews, when we do those focus groups, we call that data collection. Same as the surveys, that's data collection. And so after we've collected the data, how do we make sense of it? We'll touch on that a bit in the previous lesson, but for lesson 8, there's different ways that we do that for that kind of qualitative information. So again, we have 2 readings for that week, but they're relatively short. For lesson 9, this builds on that previous theme of how we make meaning from data. This is the lesson on qualitative data analysis, and there's 2 readings for you from the same text, again available on the Moodle. And this will cover a specific kind of analysis that we call content analysis, We'll discuss the role of subjectivity and objectivity in the role of the researcher and how we interpret data, and how we use those concepts when we do this process we call coding, which we'll expand on that. And we'll also analyze different forms of data in that lesson. Lesson 10 will focus on storytelling, history, and ethnography. And we have another reading from Qualitative Research Methods for the Social Sciences on the Moodle. And we'll look at topics including ethnography, which is a type of research method, oral traditions, archival research, historiography. We'll look at oral and written approaches to history, culture, and society. And we'll tackle some issues around how we actually work with history as a topic. It's not something that every single piece of community-based research is going to be engaged in, but it's something that a lot over time have worked with in different ways. So it's a valuable conversation to be having. In lesson 11, we will look, it'll be kind of a two-part lesson. The first looking at program evaluation. And for that, we have a case study that was conducted by Lauren and a number of other researchers that was evaluating the Neighborhood Resource Center, which is a social service here in Sault Ste. Marie. In our discussion about evaluation, we'll look at how to approach program evaluation and the role of community-based research in policy development, adapting programs to change, that sort of thing. And then we'll look into a related field, which is advocacy. So we can explore what we'd call non-written forms of community-based research that often manifest themselves as types of advocacy. And we'll go over some guidelines for how to achieve the goals you're looking for depending on the particular situation you're confronted with. And then our last lesson, lesson 12, looks at writing and dissemination, or promoting the work that you've done, spreading the word about what you've achieved. There's one last reading for that course from The Curious Researcher, A Guide to Writing Research Papers. And we'll look at models of report writing, policy briefs, research dissemination, and we'll have some final reflections in this lesson as well. And then the last item in your syllabus looks over the assignment details. So this is a bit more information on each of the assignments that you have. The presentation, as we said, is due May 25th, and each of you will make a 7 to 10 minute presentation in PowerPoint or some other kind of presentation software that will outline the community need that you've identified, your initial research questions, how the research will contribute to social justice and community change. It will identify various community stakeholders in the research, and plan for how you're going to engage them. And it will include a self-reflection component on why you are well placed in the community to conduct the research, and what other skills you may need to acquire or access in order to conduct the research. Remember, it's okay to say, I don't know how to do this certain thing, so I'm going to recruit somebody to help me with that. There's going to be there is an instructional video posted on the top of the Moodle course page that will walk you through the steps for how to create and publish a PowerPoint presentation, and also how to record over the slides with audio, because that's going to be an important part of how you present this to us. The next assignment, the completion of the ethics certificate and the reflection on ethical considerations, due June 1st. This is really to demonstrate your understanding of ethical issues. There's a standard certificate issued by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. The link is provided right here. You can just copy and paste this into your web browser and begin the tutorial. After the tutorial, it'll ask you a series of multiple choice questions, and upon your successful completion of that, it will give you a certificate that we will ask you to make a copy of and send email to Lauren and myself. Now, it can be a bit lengthy. The whole process from start to finish can take about 4 to 5 hours. So you can establish a login and you can come in and out of it as you please. Just make sure that you block an appropriate amount of time ahead of the due date. And remember also that this certificate is required for the assignment. So in order for, if you were to move on to the next stage and do your reflection piece, it doesn't count for anything unless we have that ethics certificate. It's a very important document. So moving on to that part of this assignment, you should also complete a 1 to 2 page discussion of some of the ethical issues that might arise over the course of the research that you've proposed from the presentation. You should also discuss how you're going to minimize the risks, and remember also that, while we say 1 to 2 pages, the length is also going to depend on the number of ethical issues that you might run into um, in the course of your research. And if you leave out some really obvious issues, then that's going to result in a lower grade. So make sure that you think it through, and feel free to also be in touch with us to talk it out. The literature review, we'll be honest, is one of the harder assignments in this course, and it's due June 29th. Literature review should be about 6 pages in length, double-spaced, and should address aspects of your choice of research topic. It should also conform to what we call APA guidelines. This is just a standard way of citing other sources, basically how you give credit where credit is due. And this will also be part of your larger assignment, that will your final project. This will be part of that cumulative piece of that assignment. We will provide you a bit more detail as you progress through the lessons, but remember that in conducting the literature review, you should be essentially looking at what are what's the research that's already been done on my topic, and where am I adding adding to that discussion or filling in a gap. The literature review should be organized into major themes, so discuss kind of one theme at a time, and you can use different sources across more than one of those themes. Now, we do, just to make sure that everybody has practice in citing these, we do want to make sure that you use a variety of different types of sources. So we want to see a minimum of 5 academic articles, 1 ebook that you can get through the Wishart Library online, and 4 other web-related resources. So these can be news stories that you saw online, or anything like that, or documents from organizations that are published online, that sort of thing. So these should be in addition to the text that you're reading in class. So just the photocopies of the chapters that you've been reading aren't really enough to complete the assignment. Now, the second to last assignment is the reflective journal. That's due Friday, July 6th. And you will have to reflect on course readings, presentations, and topics that were outlined in the weekly lessons, particularly between lessons 4 and 10. Each journal should be 1 to 2 pages in length and should address a topic question provided by us through the LMS, or the Moodle. And you should submit 1 document comprised of 6 separate journal entries to us directly on July 6th, although you'll see that you'll be able to answer those questions in the forum. You can just cut and paste those into a document. Again, APA format is the guideline that we use for citing external sources. You don't necessarily have to cite external sources for your reflection paper, but feel free to do so. And if you do, please use the APA format. And then finally, the last project is your research proposal. This is due on Friday, July 20th, and this will be drawn from earlier assignments, including the presentation and the literature review in particular. And you'll be able to use these assignments and our feedback on those assignments to write a paper of approximately 10 pages in length, and it should include the following sections. So it should include a statement of community research goals or the need that's being addressed, your research question, the literature review with major themes that have been identified, your approach to community engagement in the research. You should identify major ethical issues and how they're going to be addressed, and your proposed methodology. Now, maybe you don't know what that is now. Don't worry, you will soon. And again, this should follow APA guidelines. So that's a complete overview of the syllabus and the course expectations for CESD 2016.